Welcome to I Said What I Said, a sports podcast giving you opinions not heard anywhere else. I'm your host, Brad Wakai, alongside my co-host, Tyson Gentry. And Tyson, we are back, baby. We're back with another college football episode. And we'll get into everything. Money-making time at the end. We got to update the people because, I needed a rebound and all that good stuff. So we'll see what happened there. So stay tuned for that. But, there's some big questions that we got to answer here in the Week 5 recap as we go through things. And, of course, we'll preview the big games here coming up in Week 6. We got a couple good games, I think, that we'll really highlight. And, of course, go through money-making time as well. Off the jump, smash that like button. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit the subscribe button as well so you don't miss any of our content. If you're listening to podcast form, rate, review, and subscribe, please, as well. We really do appreciate it. But, Tyson, what do you think of Week 5, man? Let's get into it. Week 5 recap, just overall, what were your thoughts on what you saw on the field?
It was hard to focus on the games because I was trying to monitor your 10 plays last week and see if I was hoping that it started off good and I was like, all right, we're going to have a 10-0 week. The kid's back. And then I just got overwhelmed. I don't know how you do it every week, but you said we have some questions to answer, Brad. I think some questions just got answered on the field and we're just going to interpret what we saw because this was statement week for a lot of teams.
Yeah, absolutely. And now that we're in conference play, we see a lot of different things pop up. The rivalries are back. You kind of see when they're playing these softer teams, at least the Power 5 schools, we can't really gauge too much, Tyson, right? Like it's always like, are they sitting on the playbook? What's the defense doing? Are they being vanilla? Now you have to break things out when you get in the conference play.
And it's also like, how good are these non-con teams? Like how good are the G5 teams this year? If you've been listening to the show for a while, like last year we were hammering Tulane every weekend, and that hype is kind of dissipated. We're looking for the next and the new, and I got to play on who I think is the new. They're not G5, but they're better than the public thinks.
Awesome. Well, that's going to be a money-making time. But Tyson, let's jump into Georgia right now because they struggled at Jordan-Hare Stadium against Auburn. They won by 7 points. They had to come from behind. And Tyson, this is against an offense who legitimately can't throw the ball. They finished with 88 passing yards. Georgia knew that Auburn was going to run, and they gave up 219 rushing yards with 5.1 yards per carry. I mean, let's be honest here. This isn't the Georgia team for the past couple years. The defense isn't as good. We always came into each season, okay, how can you replace the production off of last year's team by losing so many NFL bodies? I think we're finally seeing a Georgia team with legitimate cracks on the defensive unit that's been so dominant for 2 seasons.
Then the question becomes, are those cracks big enough to make a difference? Because Georgia hasn't separated themselves. If you listen last week, I was looking for Georgia to separate from the pack. I was looking for Michigan to separate from the pack. Michigan answered that call pretty emphatically, I thought. Georgia, not so much. But it doesn't matter in the rest of the SEC. Like with the way the SEC looks right now, that's a question we'll find out. But my main takeaway, Brad, is this is why this realignment bullshit pisses me off so much. Like you're taking this game away from us. One that if you're like a casual kind of viewer of the SEC or you kind of just take it in if it's on CBS and you got nothing else going on, you probably don't know that it doesn't matter how bad Auburn's been over the last couple of years. They're going to play Georgia tough. Or it didn't matter how bad Georgia was when Auburn was rolling. They were going to play each other tough. And it just stinks to have this thing kind of go away. This is an Auburn team that couldn't even get over the 50 against A&M. Actually, they lived on the other side of the 50. They just didn't score the ball. And then they go play Georgia, and everybody in the country is thinking, all right, this is a smash spot. Georgia's this is a 40-point victory. They probably should have lost the game.
This was Carson Beck's best game as a Georgia quarterback. And, it's a limited sample size. No, but 23 of 33 for 313 and 9.5 yards per completion. Like he really threw the ball down the field. Now he had the interception at the beginning of the game, but did have that late touchdown to Brock Bowers. I was impressed by Carson Beck. He needed to answer the call. Like this team was struggling. Georgia was in big trouble, and their young quarterback in this first true tough road environment went on the road and delivered. And Brock Bowers, I mean, what else can you say about this guy?
Who bailed him out, man? I mean, come on. This guy, who's better in college, him or Kyle Pitts? Because I don't even think it's close.
Oh, God. Brock Bowers is like the best tight end we've seen in a long time.
Where is this dude going to the draft? He's not going to rip the combine up like Pitts and that kind of catapulted Pitts to number 4. But, dude, prospect-wise, is there a comp right now for Brock Bowers?
Absolutely
he's a little smaller and he doesn't block like people probably think, but holy shit, dude, this guy can play football.
Oh, and he's just like a Travis Kelce, like kind of projecting forward, like just why would you ask him to block? Just put him in the slot. He's a matchup nightmare, and he's tearing up the SEC, which is a feeder into the NFL. But I mean, 8 receptions, 157, 19.6 yards per catch, Tyson. Unbelievable.
And then it's not like these are AJ Brown runs after the catch. Like the yak ability from a tight end is ridiculous. But you're going to hear about Brock Bowers everywhere else. So we want to give a little love to Carson Beck because I don't think there wasn't a lot of discourse on him this week.
So what do you think about Georgia going forward? Like, is this a national championship team to you?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, anytime, because it's college football, and that's it's really hard when the NFL gets going because, like, if the Bills drop week 1 against the Jets after Aaron Rodgers gets hurt, it's just like, yeah, that's the NFL. But we expect these college teams to dominate week in and week out when you're that good. And for some reason, we just kind of disassociate the history of college football. Part of the reason that the ratings are so high is because any given Saturday, like, some weird stuff can happen. Somebody can lose the game. This was their worst game they've played in 3 years. Walked away with a win on the road in conference.
Yep. No, I think that's a good point. For me, though, Tyson, I will say, like, I'm not burying this team, right? Like, I'm not like, well, Georgia can't win. I do have questions if they're going to get back to the college football playoff. We'll preview this game. If Kentucky can clip them and then you lose the SEC, you have 2 losses. I don't think there's any way Georgia goes back. So I think that's the questions I do have about Georgia throughout the rest of the regular season.
I just think if you line them up right now, like, you're feeling like maybe taking Michigan over them on a neutral, but are you taking Ohio State over them on a neutral? Probably not. Like, are you taking USC over them on a neutral? For me, certainly no. Like Texas, no. And like you run down the list of the rest of the teams. Washington's been a really fun story, but how many times we got to watch these Pac-12 teams walk into the college football playoff and have to play an NFL level defense and just get mollywopped?
So Tyson
it's
still has
an NFL
Georgia
level defense is the thing.
Yeah, that's the question, right? They don't have the same amount of speed and power that they've had the past couple. But I mean, honestly, like, how could you, right? That's the thing. So Tyson still has Georgia as a national championship contender. I have some questions, but I'm not burying this team yet. But let's move into somebody I have major question marks about because USC's defense continued to struggle. And it's Groundhog's Day with this team, Tyson. It's every single year under Lincoln Riley. The offense looks great. The defense sucks. And it almost cost them in a game they were dominating against Colorado, where the defense just falls apart and Colorado climbs back in legitimately. If the onside kick was better, I mean, that's going to overtime.
Well, and it's tough because, like, Colorado runs a 5-minute offense or 4-minute offense with 4 minutes left, down 2 scores. Like, that was weird, but it's also like Deion's first year at this level, so going to give him a little grace there, and it was a big moment. But dude, Alex Grinch is going to cost his team. He's going to cost Caleb Williams a national championship in his college career. He's already cost Lincoln Riley, X amount of postseason success because you can run back through and how many big games have they lost as a pair when they've scored 40 points. And like when somebody's been let back in to the game because you can go cut on the tape from 2014 at Oklahoma, whatever, week 6, go pick one, and they're going to be up 30, and the game's going to finish within a touchdown. And that's just kind of the way this staff is operating, which it's fine when you have better players over and over and over again than everybody. But what happened last year when they played Utah and the talent was kind of leveled out between the 2 squads, like a close game and then get absolutely stomped the second time Utah saw them. And I don't know how you can look at this USC team right now and even say they're the best team in the conference, let alone like this is a college football national champion, like write it in now.
I agree. The offense is going to be great. It's going to be spectacular. When you have the number 1 QB prospect, they're going to dominate, right? Like that's just a reality. Caleb Williams, once again, 30 of 40, 403 yards, 6 touchdowns. The dude is just special. And he's now Colorado's defense, to be fair, is not anything to write home about either. So, he's going to be able to put up video game numbers against a team like this. But we knew that, right? Like, we know USC is going to be good on offense. It's just the defense. And once again, Tyson, like, as we've highlighted for so long, and as you eloquently put it, Alex Grinch is the issue here. Lincoln Riley, if they want to be serious, has to wake up and fire his buddy because it's not getting better.
It's the most college football thing in the world. Like, in the NFL, there's always like these guys just get like reruns over and over again throughout the league. But at a certain point, it's like, dude, Wink Martindale can coach. Like Steve Spagnuolo can coach. And in college, you can look through a lot of these coaching staffs at the highest level, and the only thing holding them back is is their best friend or is their buddy they just refuse to let go of. And we're not saying fire Alex Grinch, but move him to an analyst role or something, because this dude shouldn't be calling defenses at the highest level of college football for sure. And I don't know what's the issue. Like, talent, awesome. Scheme sucks. So, like, what's the dilemma? Because we've seen it for a decade.
Let's move into something close to you. The LSU's had major issues, man. Now they're 3-2. You know, they lost an absolute barn burner against Ole Miss on the road. The offense can score, and that's what we thought coming in. Now, they didn't necessarily prove that in the second half against Florida State. But the defense, what in the world is going on with them? So you're the LSU guy. You watch their games. What's going on here in Baton Rouge?
You can spell it out with me if you want. It's SOFT, man. It's bad. You could, I said in the pre-show, I thought Judkins was going to have a really good game, kind of get back on track to where people thought he was going to be. And you rightfully said, like, he hasn't been there yet this season. Well, LSU is the ultimate get back, get right game for a lot of these offenses. Like Jackson Dart, who cares until it's, the game's going on in the game. The way dude, they can't tackle. The defense stinks. The offense is probably top 10 in the country, top 15 in the country as far as then I don't have the exact stats in front of me, but if you were to put this LSU offense on Iowa, right, that's a national championship favorite right there.
Mm-hmm.
And this team, dude, people are going to score 50. And that's just not a recipe that works. And it's not a Brian Kelly team. This is unlike what we're used to seeing from BK at Notre Dame, at Cincinnati, here at LSU.
I'm curious to see how this thing gets fixed or how this thing goes the rest of the season, because it feels like this is what it is. And it's we're 5 weeks in. I don't think you can have a drastic change here. I know people are like, oh, see, Brian Kelly, I told you we have questions about him. The guy's been successful at Cincy, and the guy was successful at Notre Dame. This is only a second season here, guys. Like, so I know people love to jump on Brian Kelly because he's easy to hate, and people do hate him. He's going to be able to recruit at a high level because that's your LSU. That's what you do. And I'm just curious to know if he makes any changes to his defensive staff after the end of the year too.
Something's got to happen. But this is also like, I don't want to be making excuses for this LSU team, but I don't know how many times we've said it here. This is a team that, was taking a ton of scholarships away last year with the coaching change. So it's a bunch of guys that wanted to stick around at LSU, or some kind of guys you grabbed through the portal that were maybe afterthoughts to other programs. So it's a little unfair. I think them beating Alabama last year is what kind of put this thing into hyperdrive, broke the brakes on the hype train for this incoming season. I think, honestly, if you would have told me that was a 9-3 football team that doesn't make the SEC championship game last year, it's a little easier to swallow losing to Ole Miss. But the reality of the situation is, just because you're ahead of schedule doesn't mean that the schedule can't change. And I think that's what the frustration is when it comes to Brian Kelly, because this is his moment, right? All offseason, it was like, this is maybe the best team he's ever had. And sitting here through 5 weeks, it's like, is this the Cheez-It Bowl team? Like, what is the ceiling?
Yeah, that's very fair. And so LSU will definitely a team to monitor as we get going forward here. We did want to mention they're still ranked in the top 25, Tyson. I know you said that they shouldn't be ranked. So
it's a joke.
Yeah. Where are they ranked? I'm trying to find. They're 23rd. And they're 3-2.
Yeah, yeah. And like, you go to the rest of the, like, Maryland's killing people right now. I can't get a number by their name.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting here. So okay, so that's the LSU thing. That's our Week 5 recap. Let's jump into the Week 6 preview here. Not as many big games, but in terms of ranked teams playing ranked teams. But we have Maryland going on the road to Ohio State. Tyson may have a play in that one. That's a very interesting game there. LSU facing Missouri. That's an interesting one. I do have a play in that. Washington State's up to 13 now. They're 4-0. They go on the road to face UCLA. UCLA's favored in that one. That's very interesting. Other ones of note, I mean, nothing really. I mean, Notre Dame's still ranked 10th. They face Louisville, who's 5-0, and they're back into the top 25. That's an interesting game. I have a play in that. And Arkansas facing Ole Miss, who's 16th and just coming off a big win over Ole Miss. So you have those games, Tyson, but we're going to focus on 3 here, and it's going to start with the Red River rivalry with Oklahoma facing Texas. Now, this is on a neutral site in Dallas at the Cotton Bowl. Oklahoma has been very good compared to expectations, at least for ours coming in. And Texas, I'm looking at a guy whose power rankings or power ratings, he has Texas as the second best team in the country. Now they're ranked 3rd in the AP poll. So let's preview this a little bit. Dylan Gabriel's been good. This defense under Venables has actually been much improved compared to last year. And the defense for Texas has been really good as well. What are you expecting in this one?
Well, this is the first time in my lifetime, I think, that going into the Red River rivalry game, I'm excited to watch the defenses. Because most of the time it's like, dude, which one of these Oklahoma receivers is going to get 600 yards today, and which Texas running back is going to do whatever they want? And one thing to keep in mind here, like I was talking about the Auburn-Georgia thing, this is probably the game in the country where the weirdest stuff happens. So throw out whatever insider info you have or anything like that. Like weird stuff happens in this game. Sam Ehlinger put the Texas team on his back for a few years and didn't get a win in this game. And so it's stuff like that. But this is probably the first time I can ever remember, Brad, where it's going to be like a physical. This is going to feel like an SEC football game, and it might be fitting with these two programs.
Definitely. What I'm looking for, can Quinn Ewers rise to the occasion? Now he did it at Alabama, right? And that people still have their question marks about him. I think in some instances, rightfully so, because when it's a sleepy spot, Tyson, it just the offense is asleep, man. And when it's a big game, for some reason, it just shows up. And I think psychology-wise, you can be like, yeah, I mean, obviously, right? Because you get ready for the big ones. This is a big game. I think Oklahoma's going to bring pressure. I think Oklahoma's going to try to heat up Quinn Ewers. And there's going to be one-on-one opportunities for these really good receivers at Texas to take advantage of if they can get the ball in the right spots. I'm curious to see if the back half of this Oklahoma defense is going to be able to keep up and slow down these Texas receivers. If I had to say something right now, I don't think they can. So I think Texas is going to be able to have explosive plays. I think you're going to see that on Saturday. But I don't know how good Texas's defense really is. And this is an Oklahoma offense that's been performing well with Dylan Gabriel, who missed part of the game last year with a concussion, I believe it was. And so he's chomping at the bit to get back.
And it's weird because if you just examine like opponent by opponent on each side, Texas has played better teams to this point in the season. There's no doubt about that. But the games haven't been, the way preseason wise we thought they were going to go. Like this last week against Kansas, it was like, are they going to be able to stop them? And then turns out, yeah, emphatically, absolutely. And then against Alabama, it was like, are they going to be able to handle this Alabama offense? Turns out Alabama's offense stinks. And the Alabama defense isn't that good, so we didn't get to learn that good relative to Alabama standards. Let's be clear. But we didn't get to learn everything that we needed to know. Besides, like Xavier Worthy's really fast, Quinn Ewers can throw a really good deep ball. So I'm looking forward to that. But like the preparedness level between these two teams and who they've played certainly indicate that Texas should be able to handle business here. But I think you're living under a rock right now if you're not impressed with what Oklahoma's been so far this season.
Same with Texas, right? Like, are they going to be able to rise to the occasion, right? Like, they're supposed to win the Big 12. Their Texas is
supposed
back.
to win the national championship.
And this is the opportunity for them to prove they are the cream of the crop in the Big 12. So this is a big game. This is at noon Eastern here on ABC. I'm pumped for this game, man. I'm so pumped. So
what do you feel about when people get upset at like big noon kickoffs and stuff like that? I love let me wake up to this instead of letting me wake up to Iowa State or whatever. Like give me a nice little meal in the morning. I need my breakfast, and then I can go light lunch and big dinner.
Yeah. So that's one of the reasons why Fox started putting big games at noon. They call it big noon kickoff because they looked at the data and said, these games at noon stink. Like, this is an opportunity for us to use our TV contract and put games on that people want to watch. And it's worked. They've exploded in that spot. And now I think the other networks are following suit a little bit, as obviously more and more networks have the opportunity to broadcast games. So you're getting a good amount of good games at noon, which I think is awesome for the sport as well. I can't wait for this one, man. Bama, Texas A&M. This is the classic 3:30 on CBS spot. SEC I'm listening to the trumpets right now. You know how it goes, like their intro. Brad Nessler's voice comes in. Gary Danielson's going to drive Tyson crazy. The other hand,
he's always doing this, dude.
It's great. We said this before we hopped on here. Weird stuff happens to Alabama when they go to College Station. Weird things seem to happen to Alabama no matter who's the quarterback, no matter how good they are, when they go and travel to College Station. This game is an opportunity for Jimbo Fisher to silence the critics for another week, another month, who knows. But he is ready for this one. His team's going to be ready for this one. And on the other side, Alabama, Nick Saban want to shut up Texas A&M.
Well, we were talking about it pre-show, and it's like, Jimbo's going to save his job for a year because the shine hasn't worn off of Alabama. As far like beating Alabama still means just as much, really, to a lot of these boosters and a lot of these programs as it did 3-4 years ago. It's just Bama hasn't had the postseason success to kind of, merit that like level of excitement for beating them. But they're sitting here at 11 in the country with a bad Alabama team. Like they're still awesome. Don't get that twisted. Is A&M going to be able to be physical enough for long enough? Because that seems to be the bugaboo when these things really get down to crunch time in these games. And the other part, Brad, is like Bryce Young can bail you out. Tua could bail you out. Jalen Hurts could bail you out. Mac Jones could bail you out. Could Joe Nero bail you out of an away game in conference with 100,000 people?
That's the question mark. What is the offense going to look like? Can Texas A&M stop this RPO? Because if they do, they're going to force Jalen Milroe into long situations where he has to throw the ball. He has a pretty deep ball, right? But if you know it's coming, it's much easier for Texas A&M to stop. So what I'm going to be watching is, can they get Alabama into the third and long situations? Can they bottle up the running game of Alabama? Because A&M, the reason why Auburn looks so incompetent against them is because they knew Auburn had to run the football and they just shut them down. This is a really good A&M defense, So if they're able to play and put Alabama behind the sticks, get their guys going after this quarterback and stifle that offense, I think Max Johnson is going to be able to do enough on the other side where they can stay in this game. Because Connor Wigman's out with an ankle injury. So it's Max Johnson. And he hasn't had to play in big spots, right? He was at LSU before, transferred out, lost his job while at A&M. Well, it's his show now. So this is a big opportunity and a big moment for him to prove that he can play at this level.
Is A&M the fastest defense in the SEC sideline to sideline?
Probably.
Isn't that weird? I was thinking about that when I was watching it. It feels like either the SEC as a whole is a little slower on the defensive side of the ball because like a lot of the reason they were able to dominate teams for a decade in the playoffs is because if you want to run sweeps and stuff like that to the sidelines, we're just going to beat you there. And that's not happening anymore. But it could also be maybe the rest of the country is getting a little faster. Maybe that's what's going on. But I'm really, really surprised at the SEC this is a bad year. This is a bad year.
And it shouldn't be, I guess, that surprising for Texas A&M, Tyson, because they've had like top 5 recruiting classes under Fisher for a while, So, but I think we're finally seeing it. I think that's maybe why it's surprising, is because we thought for however many years we're like, well, this is the A&M team that's gonna, and then they fall down. Well, maybe this is finally the team that can do something. They do have elite team speed, that's for sure. Let's jump into Kentucky, Georgia for our last big preview here, because Kentucky's been good. Now, they got the offense back on track. Devin Leary transferring in from NC State. I heard something that he's a little banged up, Tyson. I'm curious to see what they can do against Georgia's defense. Is it going to be a passing attack? Are they going to be able to run the football? Is this a game where Georgia gets excited for, really get revved up, and like, okay, let's show what we can do on a big stage here at 7 p.m. Eastern?
I think absolutely it is. It's at home. It's pissed off Kirby Smart. Like how many pieces of the recipe do you need before you really go back? And it's a ranked game at home against a conference opponent that preseason I think a lot of people thought Kentucky was going to be bad. I didn't buy into that. I actually have the over for both these teams season long, so I don't know. I need Georgia to go undefeated basically. So I guess I got to be on Georgia here, but this is. And I said it last week and I was wrong, so I'm going to double up to catch up here. But this is like Georgia has to win this game by 20. I don't think there's any way around it, and I think they know that. I also think Kentucky knows it, but Stoops is a great coach, man. But if we're going best on best, and like it's if you want to play a physical football game, Georgia will do that with you, and they're going to do that better than you.
Yeah, that's what I want to see, right? Because we think, right, like, oh, Kirby's pissed and this team's going to rise to the occasion. Tyson, what if this Georgia team, what if that's just what they are? It's just very good. And
is Kentucky very good? Is Kentucky good? Yes.
I think
but
Kentucky's
are they very
good. I don't know if they're very good. And I think that's where the difference will come into this game.
And it's weird to be sitting here through 5 weeks again and just being able, like, we can't say great. I don't think there's a single team that's popped up. Penn State's been really close at times. Washington's been really close at times. I don't think anybody's been great yet.
Okay, that's going to do it for our preview. Let's get into the money-making time now, Tyson. What we always do, we're transparent. Listen, I got my ass kicked in week 4. You know, I went 3-7, or what did I go? 3-8. A little bit better, a little bounce back here for me. So let's get into the recap screen. I went 5-5. Western Kentucky and Oregon State got home early, Tyson. That's what you were alluding to. Like, yes, here we go. Brad's bouncing back. And then, unfortunately, you know, some things just didn't get home for me. Like Illinois, that was probably my worst read. Like, they just got stomped by Purdue. You know, Wyoming, that was a wacky game. I thought I was going to be able to cover that. And then SMU, they couldn't get home. They won by 18, I believe. App State just didn't show up. And then Tulane scoring 35 against UAB. That one hurt, but was able to get Oklahoma home. That LSU Ole Miss game was a rocking chair game, and then Oregon minus 27.5. So I finished 5-5 for minus 0.68 units on the week. So that puts me, Tyson, only down 11.64 now. So we still got some catching up to do. On the flip side here, you went 2-3. It was your first losing week.
Yeah.
Or was it your second? I'm trying to look through things here. But regardless, you want to talk through your plays here?
Well, Kentucky, that was a play that I liked this week. Michigan was a play that I loved at 17.5. And again, that was a rocking chair game. Didn't read the Georgia game right. I thought for a second that there was maybe a little backdoor chance. I told you that the Kansas and Texas game wasn't going to hit. That was just an over that I had to play out of principle. And then the Duke game, man, I think that this is maybe the worst beat I've had of the year. Like the way that this game ended was absolutely gut-wrenching for holding a Duke 5.5 ticket, especially for the play of the week.
So Tyson is down this week 1.23 units, but he's up on the season 2.89 units. As a podcast, we are down 8.76 units, and it is all my fault, ladies and gentlemen. Tyson's carrying the weight. I got to get back to it. So let's dive into week 6, man. I got 10 plays once again. I'm not shying away. This is what I do in college football, man. I love spraying the board. I think there's edges all over the place because it's hard to handicap that many games, especially on the sportsbook side. It just turns out it's been biting me in the ass a little bit this year. But I think we're going to turn the tide here pretty soon as we get in the conference play. But I will defer to you as the winner so far of the podcast. What do you got? Play 1.
Play 1, Brad, and this is one that I'm just going to get off my chest early. It's one we've alluded to a handful of times throughout the show. I don't want to play the spread in the Maryland-Ohio State game at even money. I want to play Maryland money line plus 810. I don't think the difference is that big. I don't know what people have been seeing. And, like, look, I'm a guy that has an Ohio State conference championship ticket. I'm a guy that thinks Ohio State is maybe the most talented team in the country. Haven't seen it. And at big moments, yes, they went down the field and scored against Notre Dame. That was a good moment for Ohio State. It was also aided by a lot of Notre Dame miscues and mistakes. Maryland hasn't been making many miscues and mistakes. And I think the main reason that I want to play this is because at plus 810, like, Brad, this should be, to me, this is plus 425 territory. So getting this at plus 810, I'm very confident you can run through the board. Like, you're not going to find a lot of 20-point spreads with this huge disparity. And I think look, it's going to be fun one way or the other. There's going to be a lot of points scored in this game too.
Ooh, I love that. How about that? Tyson calling a shot here, plus 810 on Maryland money line. Let's go.
I'm trying to make up. We got to make up 10 units. We got to start now.
It's a flyer, man. I love it. I absolutely love it. I'm going to go Liberty minus 20.5 on Thursday. People are going to be watching Thursday Night Football. We're going to be watching Liberty football, baby. They're at home taking on Sam Houston State, who has one of the worst offenses in the country. Jamie Chadwell's done a really good job for Liberty so far. I think they continue that in this one. I just don't know how Sam Houston State's going to score. Like, Liberty is physical. Liberty can score the ball. And yes, it's a lower total, but I take this up to 21. I'm comfortable with that. So give me 20.5 here for Liberty.
This next play is one that you hate. It's against your boys. Vanderbilt plus 18.5 at Florida. Yes, they're going on the road. Yes, Florida's pissed. Yes, people are calling for Billy Napier's job, and that could lead to maybe a fired up Florida team. Dude, nobody beats Vanderbilt by 20. I don't know what's going on this year, but like no matter what building they go into, who they're playing, how good their opponent's been, so far they're going to find a way to get this game to 17 points. Like this is a 38-21. The other part is, can Florida score enough to even cover this number? Because I don't know. I haven't seen that. And it's not like Vanderbilt's defense is all world. So maybe they're going to get back to, going up and down the field. But in order to cover huge numbers, you got to be able to score the ball. And I haven't seen that from Florida.
I'm taking Kansas State minus 11.5 on the road at Oklahoma State. It's a bad offense that Oklahoma State has. This is a good Kansas State offense. I think they're getting healthier at the right time as well. We had some line movement in this favor. So I like Kansas State minus 11.5 at minus 115. I just don't trust anything Oklahoma State's doing right now. I know it's a tough place to play, but Kansas State goes on the road and beats teams. And I don't think they're going to have an issue here. So give me Kansas State minus 11.5.
Here, Brad, I'm going Washington State plus 3.5 at UCLA. I think this might actually be Chip Kelly's best team at UCLA. I think the defense is pretty good. But I'm getting Washington State, who at this point in the year has shown me they're a better football team than UCLA has. That UCLA Utah game showed me everything I need to know about what this UCLA team is going to be in big moments. And UCLA or Utah and Washington State couldn't be more different. So maybe those things will help. But I'm getting this. If they lose by a field goal, I cover, and I'm comfortable with that. I think there's a pretty good chance that they win the game outright. And let's get the Heisman train rolling for Cam Ward.
Mm-hmm. This is a
what does he have to do? Is it because he's at Washington State? And so we think their quarterbacks always put up huge numbers, but we forget that not a lot of people are doing this on an undefeated team in the best conference in the country.
Yeah, that's a good question. Honestly, I think he's going to have to start beating some more teams, right? Like with the Wisconsin game, that was a big one. Oregon State, that was a big one. He had a big performance. Then you start beating UCLA if they can beat USC. I think he'll strongly be. I mean, if they beat USC, now I got to see if they're on the schedule. But just as an example, I mean, that's a
Oregon, Washington, whoever it is.
Yeah.
If they beat one of these teams in the top 10, this dude is collecting hardware in New York.
And keep in mind here too, Tyson didn't necessarily bring this up. I know this was going in here to his play. This is at 3 p.m. Eastern, so that's a 12 p.m. local kick for these guys. And we all know that nobody goes to these games, and you think they're going to go at noon? This could be empty. The Rose Bowl could be empty. So there's a play for you there. Tyson, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, man. LSU, Missouri over 64.5. Missouri's defense, they've been better. Not good enough to stop this LSU team. And this LSU team can't stop a nosebleed. And Missouri's offense is cooking right now, no pun intended, with Brady Cook. And their receiver, what's his name? Burton. He is an absolute stud. He may put up video game numbers in this one. So I love the over here. Give me over 64.5.
Yeah, that one, when I was watching that Ole Miss LSU game, that was the only thing I was taking some solace in, is that you got to put your feet up at about halfway through the second quarter, knowing that this was going to hit. Brad, I'm going back to a well that hasn't been very good to us this season. Illinois at home against a bad Nebraska team, minus 3.5. I haven't liked what I've seen from Illinois. I also don't know if Nebraska is good enough to make that matter. I think that when it gets to, this is going to be a 5 field goal game. As far as this is what the offenses are capable of, right? We're not going to see a 35-28 game here. This is going to be who's more physical, who's better at controlling tempo, controlling the line of scrimmage. And the answer to that question is Illinois. I don't love the fact that it's over a field goal here, but nobody finds ways to lose games like Nebraska.
Yeah, I mean, Illinois burned me, man. They burned me, and honestly, and I'm not one of these guys who holds on to stuff and I'm like, oh, I'll never play him again. I know a lot of people do that. That's just not smart if you're actually thinking about betting, because maybe you have a better edge. I had to stay away from this one, but I was looking at it. But the 3.5, that concerns me, I will say. Tyson, I'm going with Toledo minus 19.5. They're going on the road to face UMass. So this is an interesting spot here for UMass because they play Penn State next weekend, where they're going to, in their minds, are probably conceding like, okay, we're going to get smoked in that one. So I wonder if they're focusing more of their attention on this game than that matchup where they have to go on the road and they'll try to win one at home. But Toledo's defense is really good. It's a really good defense. And this UMass offense, after starting off pretty good to start the year, it's slowed down a little bit. Now, this is a big number, and I am nervous about it. I'm not going to lie, but I think Toledo can stifle what UMass does in offense and then run through that paper mache defense. So give me the points here. Laying the points here with Toledo.
Why don't you run through 7 more of your picks, you psycho? I only got one left. That's my play of the week. We got to get through your 10.
Okay. Well, we said it in the preview. Texas A&M, weird things happen there. Weird things happen in College Station when they're playing Alabama. So, Tyson, you did a money line. I'm taking a money line. I'm just going to go A&M to win this game, plus 100. That may come back to bite me if it, they lose by a point or whatever. I'm just going to take them, man. I'm getting even money here. So, Texas A&M money line. I think the defense shows up. I think they stifle the offense of Alabama, and some of that voodoo magic down there at College Station comes to play here. So, give me A&M money line at even money. My next one, I'm going back to the well here. It's Clemson at home against a Wake Forest team who has been really bad this season, Tyson. So I'm laying minus 20.5 here with the Clemson Tigers in a bounce back spot as they look to really kind of get things back on track. I just think at home, it's going to be a big game for Clemson themselves. I don't think Wake Forest has the guys on offense or defense to slow them down. So give me Clemson minus 20.5. And let me see how many more I have here. I have 4 more. So I'll run through another one. And then we'll get to your play of the week and I'll finish off. I mean, did anybody watch what the heck happened last week with UCF and Baylor? I texted Tyson halfway through and I was like, why the hell did I not take UCF at home against Baylor? Well, I jinxed them because they lost. So it's a good thing I didn't take them. Man. Oh my goodness gracious. So like that, I mean, after seeing that, I'm taking UCF Kansas over 64.5. Kansas's defense was exposed a little bit by Texas. Now, that's a way
better higher
class, right? But UCF has some guys too. But I think Jalen Daniels is going to be back for this contest. And if Baylor's offense is going to do that against UCF's defense, I mean, why can't Kansas do the same exact thing and score even more points? So give me the over 64.5 in this one.
So you mentioned Kansas. My play of the week involves a team they played last week, and I kind of talked about it when we were going through the preview here. Brad, I have the under for the first time in my life. I have the under in the Oklahoma-Texas game.
Wow.
60.5 for people that are curious what that number is. Again, dude, I don't know. Like, I don't think Oklahoma can score 35 points in a game. So then you're on Texas to score 42. Can they do that? Absolutely. Have they done that against a defense like this? I don't know. And this is a tough play because, again, it's hard to tell how good that Oklahoma defense really is when they're playing Cincinnati. And it's hard to tell if Texas has it rolling necessarily, or if this is just Sark finally got the athletes into the building to kind of make some of the things go away when you play lesser competition. But dude, I don't see a way. These two teams tackle, and that's the first time I think that's ever happened in this rivalry, and that's gonna speed the game up. It's gonna I'm not shocked if this is 28-31, and I'm fine.
Oh, Tyson, I'm mad at myself. The production was not good here. I kept putting up your play, my plays under your name, so that is my fault. But so if you're watching on YouTube, if I'm talking, then it's obviously my picks here. But that's interesting play of the week here because I think in the past Tyson, remember when the total legitimately was set at 80? There was
it was a thought
they scored 120 points. It was insane.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. If any other game in the country is set at 80, you're immediately like, nope. And this one, as soon as you see the line, you're kind of like, it's Texas, Oklahoma. It's probably going to be over.
Yeah, and I like this play too because everybody just kind of going in. They're like, well, there are always points in this one. Well, you haven't been watching them this year then, if that's the case. Now there could be, obviously, but I like the lean here. I like the angle. I'm going to go Notre Dame minus 6.5. So they're on the road going to Louisville, who is undefeated. I still think this is a Fugazi Louisville team, man. I don't trust them.
It's hard.
It is. So I'm going to lean. Here's what I know. Notre Dame has dudes in the trenches. They're going to be able to run the football at will against this team. So I think that's one way they can control it. I like their quarterback a lot better than what Louisville has. And so I think a touchdown here for a team that is much better, in my opinion. I like that. And I think on the road, people are going to say, oh, well, they barely got by Duke. Duke's defense is really good. Not the case here in this one. I think the holes may feel a little bit more wide open, and Hartman's going to have a little bit more to do through the air. So give me Notre Dame minus 6.5. Notre Dame minus 6.5.
Here's a little inside baseball for the people listening. Brad and I both have Louisville under 8.5 wins. So maybe there's a little emotional hedging going on in this one.
Maybe just a little bit here. Yeah, that's going to be a sweaty one to close. That's for sure.
Yeah.
My second to last one here is Tyson. I'm curious what you're going to say about this. I have the University of Miami minus 20.5 at home against Georgia Tech, who just lost at home to Bowling Green.
Yeah,
that was gross. I just couldn't believe that. Like, this Georgia Tech team isn't good. The question, and I think the reserve that people may have is, will Miami rise to the occasion? It's a sleepy spot. At times, like, they can get up for games, but when it's games that, maybe they don't care that much about, are they going to be able to rise to the occasion? That's what we have here. They're going to have to do that in this one to cover the spread. I just think there's so much more talented than Georgia Tech. They seem to have that offense rolling that I think they're going to be able to cover this number. And if it gets up to 21, as the juice suggests it may, I do like it at 21 as well, but I'm giving this out at minus 20.5.
Nobody told Miami preseason that they don't have a shot to win the ACC. And they're playing because the reason that I didn't want to take this one is because I've had my heart broken by Miami so many times in the past. And this is also the spot where previous Miami teams don't just not cover the spread, but they lose the game. And so that was a little hesitant for me, but catch up, people. This is a pretty damn good football team.
My play of the week, Florida State minus 23.5. I can't believe we're getting this number against Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech is not good. And I think we're looking at Florida State oh, well, how good are they really? They have way better athletes on both sides of the ball. This is a game at 3:30, so it's not going to be one of those noon kickoffs. People are going to be tailgating. It's going to be loud. It's going to be rowdy. I think this is a time where Florida State's offense is going to roll. They're going to make another statement here, and they're going to remind people, okay, yeah, Florida State, we are the cream of the crop in the ACC. So give me Florida State play of the week minus 23.5.
You are the preeminent Florida State hater on the podcast. So this is a welcome change for me. It's also, dude, if you're going to have to watch this game, and you didn't want to before you made it to play. And so that helps as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Tyson, there's a few more I'm leaning towards. I'm not going to lie to you. UTSA could be a play for me.
Bro, you're cut off of UTSA. There's no more any Texas State schools. You aren't allowed to play them.
So Frank Harris might be back. So I'm monitoring that, and they're going to have some weapons back potentially. I couldn't give it out on the podcast just because I don't know what the situation is with that, but I'm monitoring that.
You're going to get this thing up to 15 one of these weeks, and I'm going to throw up.
Where can they find those if we do decide to play anything else?
The Chalkboard app, App Store, Google Play, wherever you download your apps. The group name ISWIS presents the Roundtable Bets. I don't know how I screw that up every time. Every time. It doesn't matter. But it's just a kind of like a Discord. It's all of us just throwing picks in there. Brad, myself, a handful of other people. It's free. We'll let you write in. You throw your picks, whether it's a fun parlay or you really think Charles Oliveira is going to turn it around in the rematch and beat Islam Makhachev. If you think Francis Ngannou is going to shock the world against Tyson Fury. If you think that Brooks Koepka is going to win 3 majors this year, whatever you think in any sport, throw it in the chat, because there are people that want to tail. There are people that want to fade. And sometimes it's just nice to have a little good discussion, man.
Yeah, absolutely. We have some fun in there too. We're chatting. And like I said off the top, subscribe, and share. Smash that like button if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening in podcast form, go ahead and rate, review if you haven't already. It really does help us out. A 5-star, it helps us climb up the charts. We do appreciate all the support that you guys give us in the meantime. But you can always stay connected with us on social media, X, Instagram, TikTok. Our handle is the same for all three. It's at ISWIS_pod. Let's get back on track. Let's try to I'm hoping that I can have a good week here so that you're not just carrying the show. I need to do my part here, Tyson, but we'll be back next week to talk more college football, obviously, but we have another show coming up later this week to talk about the NFL, because that's what we do here. So that's what you got to say. Subscribe to us so you don't miss any of our content. So we'll be back talking about professional football later in the week. We'll speak with you guys then. Peace.